I'm going to tell you something I should have told about 4,000 customers and didn't. There's a bag of white powder in every hardware store in this country. It costs about $12. It has been sold for over 100 years. It kills roaches, ants, fleas, bedbugs, earwigs, and silverfish. And it does it in a way that insects cannot become resistant to. Not haven't yet. Cannot. I knew that at 24 years old. I knew it every month for 41 years, driving to houses I was charging $200 a visit. And I never once said the word. Not because it doesn't work, because of what happens to a monthly service contract when a customer finds out a $12 bag does most of the job. But there's a reason I'm not just handing you a bag and walking off. Nearly everybody who buys this stuff uses it in a way that does absolutely nothing. And there's a second version of it on the same shelf that you must never, ever bring into your house. I'll show you how to tell them apart. First, why it can't be beaten. Every insecticide you've ever bought is a chemical. It goes into the insect and interferes with something, a nerve, an enzyme, a signal. And anything chemical they beat eventually. One roach in 10,000 has a slightly different enzyme. It survives. It breeds. 20 generations later, the whole population shrugs at your spray. That's why the stuff that worked for your parents doesn't work for you. This powder isn't a chemical. The EPA registers it as a mechanical insecticide, and that one word is the whole story. Here's what it actually is. It's fossils, microscopic algae that died in ancient lakes and left their skeletons behind. Millions of years of them, ground into a fine white dust. To you it feels like flour. To something the size of an ant, every grain is a piece of broken glass. And here's what it does. An insect has a waxy coat that holds its water in. It has to. It's a small thing with a lot of surface area, and it would dry out in a day without it. That powder does two things at once. The sharp edges scratch through the wax, and the powder absorbs the oil and fat in it. So the coat stops working, and the insect loses water it cannot replace. It dies of thirst, from the outside in, usually in a day or two. Now, how does an insect evolve resistance to being scratched? It can't. There's no enzyme for it, no gene that makes you waterproof against broken glass. That's why it's the most recommended natural pesticide there is, and why it worked exactly as well in 1925 as it does this afternoon. Which brings me to the part where most people waste their $12. I've walked into houses where somebody bought this on my recommendation, the rare times I gave it, and laid it down like they were icing a cake. Thick white lines along the skirting boards, a heap in the corner. You could see it from the door, and it did nothing, nothing at all. Two reasons, and they're both simple. One, they walk around it. An insect can see a white ridge in its path, and it can feel it. Roaches, ants, they'll go round. You didn't build a trap, you built a fence, and they took the long way. Two, it only works on contact, and only when it's dry. It has no smell they're drawn to. It doesn't lure anything. If they don't physically walk through it, it may as well be sugar. So here's the right way, and it will feel wrong. So thin you can barely see it, a haze. If you're standing there thinking, that's not enough, that's exactly enough. Use a puffer, or an old squeezy ketchup bottle, or a turkey baster. Something that lets you blow a light dusting into a gap rather than pour a pile onto a surface. And it goes where they live, not where you see them. Into the crack behind the skirting, under the fridge and the cooker, into the gap at the back of a cabinet, under the sink where the pipe goes through the wall, into an outlet box, power off at the breaker because that's a motorway inside your wall, under the toe kick, into the void where a pipe enters. You're not laying a barrier, you're dusting the corridors, then leave it. It's slow, a day or two per insect, and weeks for a whole population. But it doesn't evaporate, it doesn't break down, and it doesn't stop working. A dusting in a drywall void is still killing things next year. Nothing you spray can say that. Now the part that actually matters, and if you take nothing else from this, take this. There are two versions of this powder on sale, and they look identical. same white powder, same texture, same word on the front. One is safe enough that the FDA classes it as generally recognized as safe, and it goes into animal feed and stored grain. The other one causes an incurable lung disease. Here's the difference, and it's one word: calcined. The safe one is raw. The silica in it is amorphous, non-crystalline. Under about 1 to 2% crystalline, that's food grade. The other one has been heated to over 1,000 degrees to harden it for swimming pool filters. That heating converts the silica to its crystalline form. Pool grade can run to 60% or more crystalline silica, and crystalline silica causes silicosis, scarring in the lungs, progressive, incurable. It's why OSHA sets exposure limits for it in micrograms, and it's a confirmed carcinogen by inhalation. There is a documented case series of severe silicosis in workers handling this dust industrially. This is not a theoretical risk on a label. So how do you tell them apart in the shop? You cannot tell by looking. Both are off-white to gray. Color is not a test. Read the bag. It must say food grade, or Food Chemical Codex, or cite FDA GRAS status. Many print the crystalline silica figure. You want under 2%. And if it says swimming pool, or filter aid, or it's sitting in the pool chemicals aisle, put it down. Never in a house. Never on an animal. Never near food. Ever. Even with the right bag, wear a dust mask while you're applying it. It's a desiccant. That's the whole point of it. It dries out whatever it lands on, and that includes the lining of your nose and throat. Gloves, too. If you're doing a lot, it'll chap your hands raw. Nobody in a shop is going to tell you any of that. The pool grade is often cheaper and easier to find, which is exactly why people get it wrong. I'm not going to sell you a miracle, because I've watched people expect one. Where it genuinely works: crawling insects, on dry surfaces, in enclosed spaces, roaches, ants, fleas in a carpet base, bed bugs in a frame joint, earwigs, silverfish, anything that walks and hides in a crack. Where it does nothing at all, anything wet. Damp powder is dead powder, a basement that sweats, under a leaking sink, outdoors after rain. You'll have to reapply, and honestly, don't bother in those spots. Anything that flies straight to you. Mosquitoes, house flies, they never touch it. Anything you need dead this afternoon. This is a 2-week tool, not a 2-hour one. If there's a wasp nest by your back door, this is the wrong video. And it will not fix a house that's still open or still feeding them. Same as everything else I've ever told you. If there's water under the sink and crumbs behind the toaster, you're dusting a restaurant. Here's the honest version. It is the best thing on that shelf for the money, for crawling insects in dry cracks, if you're patient. That's a narrower claim than the internet makes, and it's a true one. So why 41 years of silence? I want to be fair to the trade, because there's a real answer, and it isn't only greed. Part of it is that it's slow. A customer who's frightened wants something to happen today. You hand somebody a bag and say, give it a fortnight, and they ring a competitor that evening. So we sprayed. Spraying looks like work. A man in uniform with a tank walking your baseboards feels like $200. A $12 bag does not. And part of it is exactly what you think it is. You do not build a monthly contract on a product a customer can buy once and use for 2 years. There's no repeat visit in it. No ticket. Nothing to write down. I sat in trucks with men who knew all this. Nobody said it out loud because nobody had to. So here's the part I want you to hear. I'm not telling you to never call anybody. Some jobs genuinely need a professional, and I've said so plainly in other videos. But if what you've got is roaches under a cabinet, or ants along a skirting board, or fleas in a carpet, and somebody quotes you a monthly contract before they've even looked properly, you're allowed to spend $12 first. That's it. That's the thing I should have said 4,000 times. Tonight, get a torch and look at the gap where your kitchen cabinets meet the floor. Not the room, the gap. That gap is where they live, and it's where this goes. A haze you can barely see, blown in, and then left alone. Not a line on the floor, not a heap in the corner, a haze in a crack. And when you're stood in that aisle, turn the bag over and find the words, food grade. If it doesn't say it, it isn't it. If you want the rest of what 41 years taught me, I put a new one up every couple of days. I'll be here.